In order to make the argument that salvation is something that can be lost, people will often refer to two different passages. One comes from Matthew 24, and the other one comes from Mark chapter 13, but they both refer to the same event. Jesus just got done teaching in the temple, and as he's walking out, one of the disciples pointed to all the buildings and said, "Look how magnificent all of this is." And then Jesus told him, not one stone will remain on the other before it is wiped out, and it's going to happen soon. So then the disciples are wondering, well, when is this going to happen? This is massively important because the rest of what we read in both of these sections is going to be dictated by this question, and it carries massive implications. So let's consider a couple things that we know about this text. So Jesus starts rattling off all of these signs. We hear wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines, just general unrest. People are going to be betraying one another. People will be killed and persecuted for my name's sake, he tells them. And then he says that the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up, because when we read this word saved, we usually think that it always means eternal life or salvation that we're talking about in a spiritual sense. But when we read what happens in both of these passages, Jesus also warns them that when you see these signs in the abomination of desolation, which is another topic altogether, he tells them to flee to the mountains in Judea. That's peculiar. He tells them to go and hide in the crevices and in the rocks and get out of town and hope that it's not in winter for the sake of the women and the children, because of something that really happened during their generation, which he told them that this generation will not pass away before these things take place. And a generation in that time was typically 40 years. So Jesus is making these comments around the year 30 AD. And what do you know? 40 years later, Jerusalem falls to the Romans in the first Jewish-Roman war. And we can read about this through Josephus, who is a historian who accounted for all these historical events. But another interesting thing happens. There was a massive, unprecedented earthquake in the year of 68 AD, just before this happened. So then we read this comment about those who endure to the end will be saved. Something else to note, that word saved is not the same word that we see in the terms of salvation throughout the rest of the New Testament. It's more about physical preservation and rescue, which totally makes sense in terms of Jesus' comments about fleeing so that your physical life will be preserved. He was saying that if you endure to the end of these events, then you will be physically saved from this calamity.